definition, principles, classification, cropping system for different agro ecosystems, etc. Introduction about the topic. These are all some of the basic terminologies which are very much required or very much essential to know about the cropping systems for examination point of view also. We all know the cropping system and cropping pattern are two terms which are oftenly we will use interchangeably. Then what is this meaning? What is the actual meaning of this cropping system and cropping pattern? The cropping pattern refers to the yearly sequence and spatial arrangement of the crops or crops and fallow in a given piece of land. But whereas cropping system refers to the cropping pattern plus its interaction with the farm resources and available technology which constitute the cropping system. That is, in other words, cropping system equals the cropping pattern plus management practices. And what do you mean by this crop system? Crop system, an arrangement of plants in the field that are transfer solar energy, nutrients, and water into the useful biomass. The crop can be a different species and varieties, but they constitute the crop system if it is managed in a single unit. Say, for example, maize system, rice system, sorghum system, etc. The some other terms which are used in this cropping system are agroecology. What do you mean by this agroecology? Coming to some other terminologies, that is agro ecosystem. Then what do you mean by this agro ecosystem? That is agro ecosystem, it is a relationship between the agricultural crops and the environment. And another term is agroforestry. Agroforestry means the cultivation of the food crops along with the forestry species, which includes different crops in the systems like hardy pasture system, silvipasture system. We can go this agricultural crops along with the forest species. And some other terminologies, these are very, very important terminologies for examination point of view also. And the complementary effect, what do you mean by this complementary effect? Complementary effect means the one enterprise will help in the yield, in improvement of the yield or anything else in the other effect, other species. That is effect of one component on the other, which helps to enhance in the growth and productivity. Then what do you mean by this component crops? In cropping system, most oftenly we will use component crops. That is individual crop species which are the part of the multiple cropping system that are called as component crops. Say, for example, maize plus pulses, any pulses, maize plus green gram. That is, the green gram is called as a component crop in the in cropping system, that is in intercropping system, and the maize is called as a main crop. Then what do you mean by crop rotation? That is crop rotation is a repetitive cultivation of an ordered succession. It is very, very important from your examination point of view. The definition will be asked like this only. There is ordered succession, one after the another succession. Repetitive cultivation of an ordered succession of the crops on the same piece of land. That is one cycle of takes, it may take 1 year or several years. And another important term is cropping index. That is number of crops grown in a year multiplied by the 100. Say, for example, if you grow 5 crops in a year, say, for example, in your exam, they will ask what is the cropping index if a farmer are taking 5 crops, that is 500%, like that only. If 3 crops, then 300%. Number of crops grown per annum on a given piece of land multiplied by 100. Okay, this is called cropping index. Come to double cropping. Double cropping means 2 crops. That is, it's one type of the sequential cropping system. Here, 2 crops are taken in a year. That is called as double cropping. Say, for example, maize followed by wheat, rice followed by wheat. It is a double cropping system. And another important terminology, eco farming. Eco farming, it's also similar to like one of the approach of the organic farming or natural farming. Here we have given more emphasis on the soil physical, chemical, and biological properties to enhance the biological property and to enhance the living entity of the soil. And what do you mean by intercropping? Intercropping, it refers to growing of the 2 crops simultaneously on the same field of the same field with a definite row or without definite row. That is, in intercropping also different types. And another terminology, mixed cropping. It is a without definite row arrangement, and mixed intercropping. These are all the different terminologies. And monetary index. Monetary index means the output, the monetary value which are obtained from the cropping system. And another important terminology, that is monocropping or monoculture. This is most often in your examination. This question will be asked for in the multiple for JRF questions. They will give the definition and they will ask if this is which type of cropping. That is repetitive cultivation of the same crop on the same field. That is called monoculture or monocropping. Repetitive cultivation of the same crop on the same field year after year. Say for example, rice for several years. Maize. That is called monoculture or monocropping. Then multicropping. Multicropping means growing of 2 or more crop consequently at the same time and same field in a same year. That is called multicropping. And another important is multi-story cropping, multi-tier cropping. And this is mostly followed in case of the plantation crops. We can give popular example, that is in the first tier, that is coconut will be planted. After that, the pepper will be trained into the trunk of this coconut and pineapple and grasses. This is a multi-tier cropping, that is growing of 2 or more crops simultaneously in the same field with different height and rooting system. The intercrops will be selected based on the height and rooting pattern of the crops. Based on that, we will select the crops for the multiple cropping system. And another important in multiple cropping system, the main objective is to utilize the effective utilization of the solar radiation and also the space left over between the two spaces of that intercrop that can be effectively utilized, and the moisture and the light can be effectively utilized in the multi-tier cropping system. And one more important is relay cropping. Relay cropping means here what we will do in this relay cropping is we will sow the second crop in intercrop in a standing, mature standing crop. Say for example, in northern India, after immediately when paddy is at the reproductive stage, they will broadcast the lentil and lecherous seeds in the mature paddy field. They will utilize the residual moisture, and without the additional use of the input, the farmers will get the income. That is called relay cropping. That is, this is a technique in which different crops are planted at different times in the same field. Both the crops will be spent at least some time in the field together. Say for example, that is dropping cover crop seed into a soybean crop before it's mature. Before harvesting of the first crop, we'll sow the second crop in the reproductive phase. And another is row intercrop. In row intercrop, we will maintain the definite row proportion. And another terminology is sole cropping. That is one crop variety grown alone in a pure stand at normal density. Say for example, maize. Normal density means the normal recommended plant population of the maize is around 55,555. Say for example, if the spacing is 60 by 30 centimeter. So that is the sole cropping. If the 100% population is there in the field, means that is called sole cropping. Spatial arrangement. Another important, strip cropping. The most oftenly this is asked for several examinations also. What do you mean by strip cropping? Strip cropping, growing 2 or more crops in different strips. Here in strip cropping, they will ask this: erosion permitting and erosion restricting crops are cultivated in strip cropping. Erosion restricting crops means which crops are coming under erosion restricting crops? Pulses. Most of our pulses comes under erosion restricting, and erosion permitting crops are the cereal crops. Here we can say the strip cropping is the combination of both erosion permitting and erosion restricting crops. So this will help in the soil conservation and also the moisture conservation. These are different types in the strip cropping: contour strip cropping, wind strip cropping, buffer strip cropping. But in buffer strip cropping, they will include the grasses. In contour strip cropping, the crops are grown across the slope, so thereby they will restrict the erosion and also the water movement. Coming to the difference between this cropping pattern and cropping system, as you all know, cropping pattern is a yearly sequence and spatial arrangement of the crops and fallow in a given area. But whereas the cropping pattern is, cropping system is a cropping pattern used on a farm and their interaction with the farm resources. Okay, these two terminology is very important from your examination point of view. Please read these two. Please note these two very carefully. Oftenly these two will be asked for your examination. Cropping system is cropping pattern plus management. That is constituted the cropping system. Cropping pattern means it's an yearly sequence and spatial arrangement of the crops. Coming to the different type of cropping system, that is sole cropping, monocropping, monoculture, crop rotation, and multiple cropping. In multiple cropping, different types: intercropping, mixed cropping, sequential cropping. In sequential cropping, different type: double, triple, quadruple, and also ratoon cropping, multistrada cropping, Allelopathy. Allelopathy is also called as hedgerow intercropping. You know, allelopathy, it's a type of it's an agroforestry system in which the food crops are grown in alleys formed by the hedgerows of trees or shrubs. And lay cropping, these are very, very important. These will be very much important for your multiple choice questions. They will frame the questions with these cropping systems. Okay, we discussed the sole cropping means, I have explained the sole cropping means cultivation of the one crop variety alone. And in monocropping means single crop at a pure stand density. That is called monocropping. Example, say for any crop we can grow in a pure stand. And monoculture, that is repetitive growing. That is repetitive growing. And another one is crop rotation. I explained the crop rotation, that is repeated cultivation of an ordered succession of crops or crops and fallow in a same piece of land. Say for example, crop rotation should be cereals followed by pulses, cereal followed by oilseed. It will be like that, potato followed by finger millet. 1 minute. Hello. Governor nahi madam. मैं मंजनगुड़ा बोल रहा हूँ. हाँ उसे क्या है मैडम, मैं बैठा हूँ बाहर. ठीक ठीक ओके ओके. Sorry. Coming to multiple cropping. Multiple cropping means growing 2 or more crops simultaneously in the same piece of land in both space and time dimension. Say for example, in your exam they will ask in intercropping the crop intensification with respect to space dimension. This is very, very important in intercropping with respect to space dimension. But in case of sequential cropping, the crop intensification with respect to time dimension. This is very, very important. This is asked for your examination frequently. And coming to the multiple different types of multiple cropping system, intercropping. Intercropping, I have already explained different intercropping, that is in mango plus annuals, perennial, lucerne. You know, in intercropping we will maintain the definite row proportion. These are all the different types of intercropping: row intercropping, mixed intercropping, strip cropping, as I explained earlier. In row intercropping, definite row proportion. In mixed intercropping, there will be not be any row proportion. And strip intercropping will go both erosion permitting and erosion restricting crops. Coming to the another important concept is parallel intercropping or parallel multiple cropping. What is this mean, parallel multiple cropping? Here, this type of where 2 crops of dissimilar growth habit are grow simultaneously in the same field. These will not compete for the resources. There will be zero competition for the resources among these crops. Say for example, here we can quote the potato plus red gram, and also the maize plus in case of black gram, where the maize will complete the peak nutrient demand of the maize will occur at 50 to 55 days, whereas the green gram will occur at 30 to 35. There is no coincidence in the growth, and also there is no competition for the growth resources. That is called parallel multiple cropping. And relay cropping I explained. And this relay cropping, in Bihar it is called as Paira, and in MP it is called as Utara. This is also very important. In which place it is, what it is called, they will ask in your examination. Paira where it is called, and Utara where it is called. Utara it will be called in MP, and Paira it is be called in Bihar. And another important is multistrada cropping. Say if I have quoted, in multistrada cropping, the crops are cultivated with respect to different height and rooting habit. Say for example, we can see here the coconut, black pepper, cocoa, and pineapple. This is the best example for multistrada cropping. And alley cropping I explained, and the patch cropping, the component crops are grown in the patches, mainly based on the soil variation in the field. And in another important, lay cropping. What do you mean by lay cropping? That is inclusion of fodder crops or grasses, preferably the legumes in the cropping system. That is called as lay cropping. Okay. This is the best example for alley cropping. That is an agroforestry system in which food crops are grown in the between the forest species. That is called alley cropping. Okay. Another important concept is that is based on the percent plant population used in intercropping, Mainly we have divided two types: additive series of intercropping and replacement series of intercropping. Then what do you mean by this additive series? Additive series means without reducing the main crop or main crop population, we have introduced the intercrop. That is as a additional, without altering the population, we will introduce an intercrop into the main crop. That is called additive series. Say for example, in case of sugarcane, we will make the paired row planting, and between the spaces of that paired row, we will utilize as a we will grow for the taking of the intercrop. That is called additive series. But in replacement series, both the crops are the component crops. Here the population of both the crops is less than the recommended population in the pure stand. Say for example, maize plus green gram. The maize population should be around, for pure crop it should be around 55,000, but in replacement series around 30,000 of the maize plants and around 25,000 will be green gram. That is called replacement series. Say for it will be in the row proportion of different row proportion. That is called replacement series. Very, very important. Please note, for almost in our Indian condition, mostly we will follow the additive series of intercropping. Then what are all the prerequisites for this successful intercropping? This is very, very important. The component crop should be difference in the maturity period. The both component crop and the main crop should not overlap with their growth factors. Say for example, potato and thus potato will complete the compete for the nutrients will be peak compete for the nutrients will be around at 40 days, but red gram around at 120 days. There will not be overlap in the growth resources, and the time of peak nutrient demand also should not occur, and the competition for the resources between the for sunlight, water, nutrient, it should be minimum. And also the component crop should be complementary to each other. Say for example, cereal plus legume, it should be the legumes will help in the N fixation to the cereal, like that should be there. And crops should be different in canopy and root system. That is a tap root followed by a fibrous root, like that we have to select for the intercropping. And these are all the advantages of the intercrop. That is efficient utilization of the water, land, nutrients. In intercropping, because of the inclusion of the pulses or any crops, the weed population will be suppressed, and also the incidence of the diseases will be less, because it will alter the microclimate of the crops, so that it will alter the pest population. Crop is against insurance against the risk of crop failure, and we can improve the yield stability, and productivity is increased, and ecological stability is maintained. Constant food supply will be there, and also employment generation. Some of the disadvantages of this intercropping requires more labor and expensive. Mechanization is very difficult. For sowing up two crops, somewhat difficult. Nowadays, the machineries are available, no problem. Intercultivation is somewhat difficult, and application of herbicides. Say for example, both the crops are requiring different herbicides. At a application of the same herbicide is somewhat difficult, and also the reduction in the yield due to competition. Sometimes it's not in all cases, some cases. These are all some of the best examples for rain-fed condition. That is sorghum plus soybean, castor plus chickpea, maize plus backgram, castor plus groundnut, wheat plus chickpea. These are all some of the popular rain-fed intercropping system. And irrigated system is sugarcane plus French bean, sugarcane plus potato, cotton plus chili, chili plus onion. These are all the popular intercropping systems for rain-fed and irrigated condition. Then what are the difference between this intercropping and mixed cropping? This may be asked for your examination, any examination. You must have know this. In intercropping, there will be a definite row proportion. In mixed cropping, there will not be a definite row proportion of the crops. Okay, here we'll show in the line in this, this is a random, it's a broadcasting type. The main objective of this is efficient utilization of space and time. In mixed cropping, the objective is to harvest any one crop at adverse situation. This is the somewhat the differences. So please note down. Coming to the sequential cropping, it is also called as non-overlapping cropping. This is asked in your exam. Sequential cropping is also called as non-overlapping cropping. Okay, there will not be overlapping of the growth results. But in case of relay cropping, relay cropping is also called overlapping cropping. Okay, please note down this. Relay cropping is also called as overlapping cropping, but sequential cropping is called as non-overlapping cropping. Okay, please note down. Please, this is very, very important. This type of questions will be asked for your competitive examinations. Okay, what do you mean by this sequential cropping? That is growing 2 or more crops in a quick succession in the same piece of land. Succession means one after the another. Okay, that is called sequential. Sequential, the name itself indicates sequence, one after the in a sequence. Okay, and double cropping, that is growing two crops in a year in a sequence on a same piece of land. Okay, example paddy followed by paddy followed by fallow, like that. There are all the some of the example I have given in this slide. Triple cropping, that is three crops are grown in a piece of land in a year, and quadruple cropping, that is four crops in a year. And also the another one is ratoon cropping, cultivation. What do you mean by ratooning? Cultivation of the crop regrowth, that is cultivation of this will be very, very important. You must note down these definitions. These are very important from your examination point of view. What I am telling is most probably these questions will be asked in almost all your examinations. Ratoon cropping, that is cultivation of crop regrowth, although it is not necessarily for the grain. Say for example in sorghum, napier, bajra, lucerne, fodder sorghum, etc. And another one is filler cropping and pincus cropping, that is growing of short duration perennial horticulture crops as a filler cropping between the orchard crops. Then companion cropping, this is also very important. That is yield of the both the crops are equal to the solid planting. The yield of the both the component crops or both the crops are equal to solid planting. That is called as companion. Example: sugarcane plus French bean, sugarcane plus soybean, sugarcane plus mustard. These are all the example for the companion cropping. I explained the main crop. You know that about the main crop. Main crop in the main component in the intercropping system. Component crop, it is the intercrop in the that is main crop. Intercropping yield, combined yield, synergistic cropping. Another important terminology is synergistic cropping. Please note down this: the yield of the both the crops, the higher than their pure crop on unit area basis. This is very, very important. Yield of the, they lost this terminology. What do you mean by synergistic? What do you mean by companion? Synergistic means the yield of both the crops are higher than their pure stand or sole crop. That is called synergistic cropping. Coming to the computation. Coming to the plant interactions in the cropping system. Okay, competitive, non-competitive, and complementary interaction. In intercropping, both the types are common. These are four categories. One is mutual inhibition, mutual cooperation, mutual compensation, and mutual supplementary. This is very, very important from your examination point of view. There is a four types of interactions in cropping system. That is mutual inhibition, mutual cooperation, mutual compensation, and mutual supplementary. Okay, let us discuss this. What do you mean by this mutual inhibition? Mutual inhibition, the yield of the in intercropping system, the yield of the both the crops are less than the expected. That is called mutual inhibition. Say for example, maize plus sunflower. The such system will inhibit or will reduce the yield of the both the crops as compared to sole cropping. That is called mutual inhibition. Then another important is hello. Another important is mutual cooperation. That is yield of the both the crops are higher than the expected. That is cooperation. That is there is the synergy between the both the crops. Say for example, finger millet plus red gram. Because why that is a cooperation? Because of the there is no competition for the growth resources like water, nutrients, sunlight, etc. That because of that reason, there will be compatibility in the intercropping system. That is mutual cooperation. Yield of the both the crops are higher than the expected. That is called mutual cooperation. And another one is compensation. That is one will compensate to the another. That is one crop yield less and another yield more. That is compensation effect. That is called mutual compensation. Say for example, maize plus green gram, maize plus copiate 2:2 ratio. Okay, another one is supplementary interaction. That will supplement the yield of the other crop. Here, the one crop without affecting the yield of the other crop, it will supplement. That is called supplementary. These are very, very important. Four types of interaction: complement, mutual inhibition, mutual cooperation, complementary, and supplementary. Okay, please note on these things. And other some of the interactions or competitions are allelopathy. In cropping system, this is also a major problem. What do you mean by this allelopathy? Any direct or indirect harmful effect of that one species as another through secretion of toxic substances. Okay, we will select the different crops in the intercropping system. The intercropping system, the crops we have selected should not have allelopathic effect on the one on the other. Okay, this is very, very important. Who coined this term allelopathy? Molish coined the term allelopathy. Say for example, the leaves of the eucalyptus, which will inhibit the germination of the mustard seeds. That is allelopathy. They will secrete some of the chemicals that will inhibit the germination of the mustard seeds. That is called allelopathy. There are different types of allelopathy. Two types. One is allo inhibition, auto inhibition. That is, allo chemicals produced by one species will affect the species other than one producing. That is, cassia species plus parthenium. These will inhibit the germination. And also auto inhibition. Auto inhibition means those who produce the chemical that will inhibit the species of the same plant. That is called eucalyptus. The root exudates of the eucalyptus, which will inhibit that will secrete some of the flavonoids and terpenoids. These will also inhibit the germination and detrimental effect on the crop. Okay, this is very important. Allopathy. Who coined the term allopathy? These are very important. And also they will ask some of this one eucalyptus, the leaves of the eucalyptus, which will produce some of the flavonoids, and the root exudates will produce like flavonoids and terpenoids that will inhibit the germination of the mustard and some other crops. And what do you mean by another important is anidation. Anidation, that is complementary interaction between the component crops in intercropping system. That is called anidation. Anidation will be for two reasons. One is anidation for space, anidation for time. That is spatial anidation and temporal anidation. Spatial anidation will observe in intercropping system. Temporal anidation will notice in the sequential cropping system. That is anidation in space. That is, canopies of the different crops may occupy the different vertical layers. With that is, taller components occupy the higher and the shorter component occupy the lower layer. In, say for example, its best anidation for space, the best example is multistrada cropping. Here the coconut will occupy the first tier, and the second tier will be occupied by the pepper, and the third tier will be occupied by the this pineapple or some other grasses. Okay, this is the best example for the spatial anidation. But anidation in time, when the component crops widely vary in their duration, the competition for the resources do not overlap rather than distributed. That is peak nutrients. Say for example, I already quoted the sorghum plus red gram example and maize plus green gram. You can say the maize, the peak nutrient demand of the maize will be at 50 to 55 days, whereas the peak nutrient demand of the green gram will be at 30 to 35 days. There is no overlapping of the growth resources for competition. Any of this water, nutrient, all those things, the peak nutrient and the peak growth requirement will occur at different stage. That is time, different stage, that is different time. That is anidation with respect to time. This is the anidation with respect to time and anidation with respect to space. And another important concept is legume effect. Most probably you have heard. What do you mean by this legume effect? You might have somewhere you might have read these concepts. The legume effect means the beneficial effect of legumes in intercropping system or any cropping system, that is called as a legume effect. As we all know, the legumes fix atmospheric nitrogen through symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Almost all the legumes which fix around 40 to 60 kg per hectare. So the inclusion of the legumes in this cropping system will ultimately helps in the saving of the nitrogen, around 25% of the nitrogen requirement of the succeeding crop. Say for example, the maize, the nitrogen requirement is around 100 kg per hectare. If you take the legumes in the cropping system, the succeeding crop, the requirement will be around 25 kg will be less, that is 75 kg the N requirement. That is legume, the root nodules which are produced by the legume crops, which the residues will leave the nitrogen at the soil and enrich the organic carbon content of the soil. So thereby it will influence the soil N fixation capacity. As we all know, these things, this is called as a legume effect. That is inclusion of the legumes, and the beneficial effect of the legumes in cropping system is called as legume effect. And another one is the sorghum effect. What do you mean by this sorghum effect? As we all know, the sorghum is an exhaustive crop and high nutrient requirement crop. What happens in the sorghum? No, if you take sorghum in the first crop, the next crop, if you take any other pulse crop, any other cereal crop, you have to apply the 25% of the extra nitrogen for the succeeding crop. Means the residues which are left by the sorghum require more time for the decomposition, because the residues are having wider Sheehan ratio. Wider Sheehan ratio means the carbon and nitrogen ratio will be higher. To narrow down this ratio, we have to apply the more nitrogen. So thereby the residues which are produced by the sorghum will decompose early. Okay, that is nutrient status of the soil is exhausted by any fast growing cereal such as sorghum maize. Both it will sorghum and maize effect will call this as a maize, and maize also will notice this problem. The crop residues from such cereals have wider shear ratio, take longer time for decomposition, and the soil N is temporarily immobilized and affecting for the succeeding crop. This effect is more common in sorghum under low fertile soil, causing nitrogen deficiency temporarily to the next crop. To overcome this, we have to apply 25% of the extra nitrogen as a basal dose for the succeeding crop. And cotton effect. Cotton effect means the cotton feeds the nutrients from the deeper layer of the soil, and the surface layer is remain unutilized. To utilize this, we can take any short duration crops to utilize this effective utilization of this nutrients and also moisture and also growth requirement. That is called as cotton effect. In cropping system, competition exists for the different resources. What are all those? First and foremost is light. Competition for the light, that is less competition if canopies are different maturity, different arrangement. The competition will be less if the canopies will be arrangement architecture will be different. Say for example, in some intercropping system, both the crops utilize solar radiation efficiently. Example, groundnut and red gram. The canopy of the groundnut will be different and red gram will be different. There will be effective utilization of the light. And also in case of maize and green gram, the same thing will be there. And also the moisture requirement, also the same thing for the moisture and also the nutrient requirement, and the differential rooting pattern should be there. Okay, the crops we have selected in the intercropping should be difference in the rooting pattern. That is, say for example, in maize and red gram, you know, maize is fibrous root and red gram is the deep root system. Okay, there will not be any competition for the nutrients while extracting from the soil. And another important concept is crop rotation. What do you mean by this crop rotation? I gave the definition, that is, it is an orderly succession. That is, the process of growing different crops in succession in the same piece of land in a specific period of time with an objective of getting maximum profit with the least investment. That is repetitive called ordered succession of crops. That is called crop rotation. In crop rotation, the same crop should not be included. There are some of the principles for this, for practicing of the crop rotation. These are all some of the principles. The crop with the taproot should be grown after the fibrous roots, and legumes should be grown after non-legumes. These are all the basic principles of the crop rotation, because legumes should be grown after that will enhance the soil N content. And the more exhaustive crops should be followed by the less exhaustive crops. Say example, more exhaustive crop, say for example, maize is a more exhaustive crop. It should be followed by the pulses, any cowpea or else any pulse crops. And crops should be demand based. Based on the demand, we have to take the crops. And the crops of the same family should not be grown in the succession, because it will act as a host, alternate host for the pest and diseases. Say for example, Solanaceous, tomato, brinjal, same crops after the same, will not take the same family crops. Solanaceous family, Malvaceae family. The crops should be different in the family. You have to take such crops. And it would be problem based. The crop selection should be based on the problem based, and also slopy land select the crops which are suitable for the restricting the erosion. And also in the dryland areas, drought resistant crops should be selected. In low lying areas, that is flood prone crops should be selected. And in tolerating, the crops to be tolerating to the water line should be included. And selection of crops should suit to the financial condition of the farmer. And selection of crops should be based on the soil and climate. Say for example, for black soil, the cotton is best suitable. Say for example, in command areas, the sugarcane is best suitable. Based on that, we have to select the crops. And ideal crop rotation is one which provides the maximum employment to the family and farm equipment. These are some of the advantages of crop rotation. That is, intercultural operations can be done timely due to less competition, soil fertility is restored, and helps in controlling insect pest, proper utilization of the resources, and farmers get better and price and higher income. These are all the factors to be considered in crop rotation. That is based on the resource availability, climatic condition, soil type, irrigation facility, marketing facility, food habits, socio-economic condition. These factors to be considered before selection of the crop rotation. These are some of the most efficient cropping systems of the India. These are also some of the most efficient monocropping, cropping sequence, and intercropping system. In monocropping, rice followed by wheat is the most dominant cropping system in the Indo-Gangetic plains. Maize, sorghum, groundnut, mustard, green gram, cowpea, etc. Crop sequence is rice followed by wheat is the dominant cropping system in the Indo-Gangetic Plains, that is northern part of the India. Maize followed by wheat, groundnut followed by barley. These are all the popular cropping systems which are followed in India. These are all some of the popular intercropping system in sugarcane, that is sugarcane plus potato, sugarcane plus French bean, Toria, Gobi sarson, pearl millet, maize, peas, wheat plus raya, etc. Here we can see that is the rice wheat cropping system in northern India, which will cover 10.5 million. This is asked for your examination also in most of exam. What is the area of the rice wheat cropping system in Indo-Gangetic Plains? Please note on 10.5 million hectares. That is rice followed by wheat is the dominant cropping system in India, followed by rice, cotton followed by wheat, soybean followed by wheat, maize followed by wheat, pearl millet followed by wheat. These are all some of the major cropping systems which are followed in India. This is very important table with respect to your examination point of view. In your exam, they will ask and give the rainfall pattern and what is the they will ask for the water availability period and also the different cropping system which are suitable for the different rainfall pattern. Say for example, if the rainfall is 350 to 600 mm, the water availability period will be 20 weeks. Which cropping pattern will be suitable? That is mostly the single crop, that is single kharif crop will be the fit for that system. And if the rainfall availability is 600 to 750 mm in black soils and water availability period will be 20 to 30 weeks, then intercropping will be possible. This is very, very important. Please note down this one. There will be a chance of coming questions from this table. And also, when there is a rainfall availability 750 to 900 mm, in case of sandy and deep black soils, when the growing period, that is water availability period, is more than 30 weeks, that is sequential and double cropping is possible. They will ask which cropping is possible when the water availability period is more than 30 weeks and rainfall is 750 to 900, or else anything they can ask from this table. Please note down this table very carefully. They will ask this. Coming to the evaluation of the cropping system. We all studied about the different cropping system. How to evaluate this cropping system? There are different indices for this evaluation of the cropping system. What are all those indices for evaluation of the cropping system? Here, the first and foremost is most land equivalent ratio. This is very important. This is very important from examination point of view. In the intercropping, the yield advantage is estimated by through land equivalent. Who has proposed this? By Willie in the year 1979. What do you mean by this land equivalent ratio? It is the relative land area under the sole crop required to give the same yield as obtained under intercropping or mixed cropping system at the same level of management. This is very important. When LER is more than 1, that this is the formula for calculation of the land equivalent ratio, that is YA divided by YA means yield of the A crop and grown with B. That is yield of the intercrop divided by SCA means sole crop yield. That is same in case of YA plus YA divided by SCA plus YB divided by SB. That is LER of A crop, LER of B crop. Please practice these problems. This is very, very important. 1 or 2 questions will be asked from this land equivalent ratio. They will ask this also. When it is intercropping is beneficial, when LER is more than 1, intercropping is beneficial. When LER is equals to 1, there is no yield advantage. There is no much influence in growing intercrops. And another LER is less than 1, it is disadvantage in the yield. LER is also termed as a relative yield total. Please note down this. LER is also called as dash. LER is also known as relative yield total. This relative yield total was proposed by DeWitt and Vandenberg in 1965. The scientist, very, very important, this assessment, the scientist who has given this cropping assessment techniques is very, very important from your examination point of view. They will ask this only for your ICR exams, JRF, SRF, NET, ARS. With respect to relative crowding coefficient, this is also one of the assessment technique to evaluate the cropping systems, intercropping system when there is a 50% of the population is there. This was given by DeWitt, that is Witt in 1960. Please note down this. And also this is the formula for calculation of the relative crowding coefficient. And these are all the formula. and that is RC aggressive, that is relative crowding coefficient is denoted by K, that is when K is more than 1, yield advantage. When K is less than 1, yield is disadvantage. There is no advantage in the yield. When K equal to 1, there is no difference in the yield. Please note down this also. The entrepreneurs, they will ask when K is more than, what is it indicates? Like that, they will ask in your examination. Relative crowding coefficient is more than, and what it means? It is yield advantage or disadvantage, like that they will ask. Coming to the aggressivity. Aggressivity is proposed by Mac-Gilchrist in 1965. It is also used in replacement series of intercropping. And these are all the formulas for calculation of the aggressivity. In aggressivity, we will give the dominant species and dominated species. Like that, we will denominate. And another important is computation index. This was given by Donald in 1963. That is, it is a measure to find out the yield of various crops when grown in together as well as separately. It indicates the yield of the different crops in mixture and also in the pure stand. Please note down these definitions and formulas. These are very, very important. Computation index by Donald. Scientist name. Computation ratio. This is given by Willie and Rob. In this assessment technique, first and foremost is all the scientists and also the assessment which are given by the different sizes. Please note down and please note down in separate sheet. This will be asked for your examination. And also the interference, when LER is more than on yield is advantageous, when RCC coefficient is more than on yield advantageous, like that they will ask. Please note down these things. And another one is computation coefficient. That is what you mean by this computation coefficient. That is relative crowding coefficient of a given species divided by total relative crowding coefficient of all the species in mixture. That is called computation coefficient. And another important is multiple cropping index. This is very, very important. This was proposed by Dalrymple in 1981. It measures the sum of the areas planted to different crops in a year to the total area. Okay, this is very important. In this question, they will ask multiple cropping, just who gave the scientist and all those things. They will not ask about definition, formula and all those things. But they will ask, this is very, very important, another cropping intensity index. Cropping intensity they will ask. And also the scientist, that is Menege, who gave this cropping intensity index. And also this is the formula for calculation of this cropping intensity. Cropping, specific cropping cultivated land utilization index proposed by Chang. And another new diversity index proposed by Stroud. To diversify the crops, how much the crops are diversified in a cropping system. It will check that diversity index. And area time equivalent ratio, that is area time equivalent ratio, LER of, that is LA into DA. This is also very, very, very important, area time equivalent ratio. Here, this is just modification of the LER. They will consider the duration of the crops into account. That is, LA means LER of A. DA means that is duration of the A crop. LB means LER of, that is the land equivalent ratio of B crop into duration of the B crop. CAPS T means the total duration of the intercropping. It may be, say, for example, maize plus red gram. The total duration of the maize duration will be around 120 days. Red gram duration will be around 180 days. The total duration will be here 180. We will not combine this 120 and 180. We will directly wait that the crop is taking more duration. We will mention in this the total duration of the intercropping. Another one is rotational intensity. That is, it's also very important from your multiple choice questions from examination. They will give this like this only. For example, maize, potato, and onion for 1 year. What is the rotational intensity? Number of crops grown in a field divided by year of rotation into 100. Just you have to place the values in the formula. That's it. These are all the 100% question. Pakka. They'll ask for any of your competitive examination. That is rotational intensity. And cropping intensity. This is very important. Total cropped area divided by net cropped area. Net cropped area means, total cropped area means, if a farmer is having 10 acre means 10 acre of land he is having, means he will cultivate 5 acre in the Kharif, 5 acre in the Rabi, and 5 acre in the Sabi. The total will be 15. The net cultivated area will be 10 by 15. Like that they will calculate. And another important one is crop equivalent yield. What do you mean by this crop equivalent yield? This is very important assessment in case of the intercropping system. The yield of one crop is converted into equivalent yield of the other crop. Say for example, in case of maize plus sorghum or maize plus cowpea. Say for example, we have to convert the cowpea yield in terms of the maize. What we will do in such case, we will take the yield of the intercrop, that is yield of cowpea, into price of cowpea divided by the price of the main crop, that is maize, plus we will add the yield of the main crop into that account. That is called crop equivalent yield, CEY. CEY, we have to kind of yield of the one crop is converted into the equivalent yield of the other crop. That is called crop equivalent yield. Here is the formula for calculation of this crop equivalent yield. And another things are economic returns, that is gross economic return, net returns. These are things all know, you know, that is BC ratio, net income by cost of cultivation, per day return, all this. Thank you. Well, friends, and another important topic is that is farming system. The farming system and cropping system are very much important, and we will discuss that is farming system. The topic allotted for me is that is farming system types: natural farming, biodynamic farming, biointensive farming, response farming, and biological farming. Okay, what do you mean by farm? Before going to actual topic, farming, what do you mean by farm? Farm is a piece of land where crops and livestock activities can be taken. Here, this farm word, which came from the word that is firmare, the Latin word firmare, the meaning to settle. Okay, it's a land of unit or what devoted for the growing or rearing of the some of the particular type of fruits, vegetables, animals, fishes. Then what do you mean by farming? Farming, it is a process of harnessing the solar energy. That is process of harnessing the solar energy in the form of economic plant and animal products. That is called as a farming. Farming, that is activity or a business of growing crops and raising the livestock. Then what do you mean by system? System is a set of elements or the components that are interrelated and interacting among themselves. Say for example, human body is one system. Skin, heart, blood, sub. Actually, all will compute as a one system. And another agricultural system. Agricultural system includes food, all those things, food crops, all those things in a holistic manner that are interrelated and interacting. That is called as system. We have discussed farm, farming, and system. Then what do you mean by farming system? Farming system consists of several enterprises. Like cropping system is also one of the components in the farming system. Dairy sector, piggery, poultry, fishery, beekeeping unit, and these enterprises are interrelated. The end product and the waste of the one enterprise are utilized effectively as an input for the other enterprises. Say for example, in farming system, the two interactions are very, very important. First one is complementary interaction and another one is supplementary interaction. What do you mean by this complementary interaction? Complementary interaction means the output of one enterprise will serve as an input for the other enterprise. That is called complementary interaction. And another one is supplementary interaction. Supplementary interaction means the components included in the farming system which contribute only towards the yield. That will not supplement in a synergistic manner. They will contribute towards the yield. Say for example, the machineries and the borewell, these are all the supplementary enterprises. These will contribute for the ultimate our end product. That is called supplementary enterprise. Say for example, the waste of the dairy, that is cow dung, urine, refuses, etc., are used in preparation of the FOM compost, which serves as an input for the crops, that is cropping system. Likewise, the straw obtained from the crops, that is maize, sorghum, the straw, used as a fodder for the cattle, that is cattle used as a input for the cattle, that is a feeding. And in farming system, the farm is used in a holistic manner. Means the integration of all the enterprises, crop, dairy, and the fishery, poultry, apiary, all those things. Some of the definitions of the standard definitions of the farming system are the scientists, some of the different scientists have given this. The most accepted definition of the farming system, which was given by Lal and Miller in 1990, that is, farming system is a resource management strategy. As we all know, in farming system, we'll use more of on-farm inputs than off-farm inputs. Okay, farming system is a resource management strategy to achieve economic and sustained production level. while concurrently conserving the environment and also farm livelihood, while preserving the resource base and maintaining the high level of the environmental quality. Okay, this is very, very important. In other words, the farming system is a judicious mix of two or more enterprises which are having the complementary interaction. Complementary interaction means that is output of the one enterprise will serve as an input for the other enterprise. Such enterprises should be selected in the farming system. Okay. Then what is the scope and need of this farming system? What is the scope and need of this farming system? The farming system, which includes the different enterprises, combination of all the enterprises like crop, livestock, dairy, fishery, piggery, apiary, all those things. Okay, for agriculture development has gone to the profound changes during the last 2 decades. In Western countries, machine power has replaced with animal power, fertilizer replaced with organic manure, dominance of fertigation and herbigation has been noticed. Similarly, in India, during the past 4 decades, the crop improvement, improved production technology and crop production technology were introduced. The improved technology poses problems. The improved, that is adoption of the, because of this high green revolution, improved intensive input use has led to some of the problem that has posed some of the problems, like that is because of this high cost of the input, the fluctuation in the market prices, environmental pollution, that is excess use of nitrate fertilizer which accumulates in the, which will cause the blue baby syndrome, soil degradation. Soil degradation is also one of the problem in India. Around 175 million hectares of the degraded land area, according to National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning. This is also a major problem, which is due to major reasons like soil acidity, alkalinity. The degradation problem is mainly due to acidity, alkalinity, wind, water erosion, and low level of the government support. These are the major, some of the problems. The technology developed for the individual crop became economically not viable and sustainable. Hence, the farmer has to link 2 or more allied enterprises to enhance or improve the income. In this context, our farming system plays a pivotal role in improving the standard of living of the farmer. And this is the importance of the farming system. What is the importance of the farming? Farming system serves as a source of livelihood for the small and marginal farmers, especially for small and marginal farmers. That is, farming system plays a pivotal role. And it's a business opportunity in agricultural sector and provides employment opportunity. Because of the inclusion of more enterprises in the farming system, there will be regular employment generation, and also this contributes for the development of the economy, and also it serves as a source of raw material for the industries such as cotton and jute, and also the sugar industries. It will supply the raw materials. This is the whole concept of the farming, that is farming system concept. That is, we can say the farm is a system that has input, processes, and outputs. Then what are all the input means? Labor, capital, seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, animals. These are all the inputs. Then what are the process means? That is flowing, sowing, harvesting, spraying, milking. These are all the processes. Then output means that is yield of the crops, that is potato. The what we get out, the output obtained from the crops. The total, that is profit that obtained from the system is, that is profit. That is the whole system of the farming system. And these are all some of the objectives of the farming. What are all the main objectives? To identify the farming system and to formulate the systems for the main and allied enterprises, to ensure the efficient utilization and conservation of the available resources, and maintain the sustainable production system without damaging the resource base. And these are all some of the principles of the farming system, that is minimization of the risk, recycling of the wastes, integration of 2 or more enterprises which are having complementary interaction, and optimum utilization of all the resources should be there. The resources should not be wasted in the farming system, and maximum productivity and profitability should be there. Ecological balance should be there. Generation of the employment potential, and also increased input use and the use of the products from one enterprise and as an input for the other enterprise. That is, I have already discussed about the complementary interaction. This is the meaning of the complementary interaction. That is, the output should be served as the input for other enterprise. This is the main objective of the farming system, is mainly this one only. That is, complementarity should be there in the selected enterprise. These are some of the factors that influence the selection or the integration of farm enterprises. Say, for example, soil and climatic features of the selected area. Say, for example, in case of temperate area, we will not select for the poultry farming. Okay. such, say for example, there will be certain climate and also certain climatic factors will be required for this poultry farming. And also for cultivation of the apple cultivation is not possible in our tropical climate. Like that only, we have to base the enterprises should be selected based on the soil and climatic features of that selected area. And the resources, that is availability of the resources, we have to see the water availability. Based on the if water availability will be more, then the crops which require high water requiring crops should be selected, and also availability of the labors and utilization of the resources and economics, that is economics of the proposed integrated system, and that the skill of the farmers should be taken into the account before selection or before integration of the enterprises. Coming to this is very important, different types of farming. This is very important from your examination point of view. These are n number of different types of that is farming system. One is subsistence farming, conventional farming, alternative farming, organic farming, biointensive farming, biodynamic farming, permaculture, natural farming, and specialized farming, diversified farming, mixed farming, ranching. We will discuss these in upcoming slides. Then what do you mean by this subsistence farming? Subsistence farming means it's a farming in which provides food and commodities just sufficient for the farming family and there is no surplus to sell. In other words, it is a non-commercial farming. The farmer cultivates the crops only for his family consumption. That is called subsistence farming. The subsistence farms usually involve small tracts of the land, example in the backyard garden. These are all some of the features of the subsistence farming. The whole family works on the farm. Most of the work is done manually. The farms are small, and the traditional methods of farming are followed. Traditional methods, yield is not very high, and surplus, there is no surplus. There is the consumption for the family consumption, they will grow the crops. It is called subsistence farming. And what do you mean by this difference between this subsistence farming and commercial farming? These are totally opposite. The commercial farming is we will grow the crops for the trade purpose. In subsistence farming, we will grow for the personal consumption. And the subsistence farming is labor intensive, it is capital intensive. There will be a more capital, that is more money is required for this commercial farming. And we will practice this subsistence farming in the small area, we will practice commercial farming in the large areas. And the productivity will be always lesser in this subsistence farming, and commercial farming will be higher. In subsistence farming, we will select food crops, that is for family consumption, whatever the crops we need, we will select such crops. But in commercial farming, we will select the cash crops, which are yielding more money. Coming to different, that is another important one of the term concept is intensive farming and extensive farming. What do you mean by this intensive farming and what do you mean by extensive farming? Intensive farming refers to an agricultural system wherein there is a high level of use of labor and capital in comparison to the land area. But in extensive farming, the large farms are being cultivated with relatively lower amount of input. This is very important from your examination point of view also. They will ask just the definitions, they will give the definition, which type of farming it is called, intensive farming or extensive farming. And another important difference is conventional and organic farming. You might have known conventional farming is whatever the practices nowadays, the modern agricultural practice is we are practicing it, that is called conventional farming. And organic farming is a type of ecological farming or organic agriculture. We will use the different preparations and also the different organic manures and all those things. These you might have known in your process. And another important is alternate farming system. What do you mean by this alternate farming? The term alternate agriculture as it relates to the area of agriculture can be defined as a systematic approach of farming intended to reduce the agricultural pollution, enhance sustainability, improve the efficiency and profitability. Sustainability, we are hearing this name. What do you mean by this sustainability? Sustainability means we have to maintain in case of in anything also in agriculture. Say for example, yield sustainability. What do you mean by yield sustainability? We have to maintain the consistent of the yield over the years. That is sustainability. You have to maintain the sustainability of the system. Alternative agriculture, it's one of the options, that is it is a non-conventional method. Another important is natural farming. Natural farming nowadays we are hearing more about this natural farming. Who gave this the term natural farming? Given by Masanobu Fukuoka. It's generally called as Fukuoka farming. A Fukuoka is a Japanese monk, a Japanese farmer. He developed this natural farming. This is very important from your examination point of view also. The Fukuoka also written one book, that is One Star Revolution. In your exam, they will ask like this only, One Star Revolution. The book was written by the Masanobu Fukuoka. It's also called popularly Fukuoka farming. Natural farming is now possible with the practical technology. We can teach the farmers, no doubt, and we do not need to depend entirely on the synthetic toxic agrochemicals. There is a growing market demand worldwide for organically grown foods. This is very important in this slide. That is the scientist who gave the natural farming and book he written, that is One Star Revolution. In natural farming, it is the plants are closed very 100% to the natural environment with least human intervention. It can be a remedy for degradation of our soil environment. It will restore our ecosystem. Nature has abundant beneficial insects that will help in the buildup of the biodiversity. These are all the different components which are included in the natural farming system, that is organic pesticides and repellent, organic fungicide, organic compost, use of beneficial fungus, bacteria, all the organic components which will be, that is the use of insect parasites and predators will be included in components as a component in natural farming. And another one is that is natural. What are all the practices which can call it as a natural farming practice? That is zero cultivation, zero tillage is also one of the component in the natural farming. That is integrated pest management, that is biopest control, use of natural enemies, that is predators and parasitoids, and also that is use of organic compost fertilizer, use of liquid organic fertilizers, planting of the resistant varieties, that is pest and disease resistant varieties, crop rotation, intercropping, fallowing, that is resting the soil. These are all some of the natural farming practices. These are all some of the difference between the organic farming and natural farming. What is the difference between this organic and natural farming? More or less the principles of the organic farming are similar to natural farming. There is a slight variation in the principle, that is a slight variation in some of the points. That is, organic farming does not totally exclude the elements of modern agriculture involving limited and essential plowing, hoeing, weeding, and use of chemicals. But in natural, totally eliminates all the components of the modern farming. And it has a many aspect to close natural farming, but the organic farming is close to the natural farming, but it does not have a philosophical tune over the natural farming. It is a continuous search of no spirit in nature. That is no plowing, no weeding, no chemical fertilizer, no plant production. Such practices are wide accepted in the natural farming. Coming to another important term is biological farming. What do you mean by this? Biological farming. Here, a system of crop production in which the producer tries to minimize the use of chemicals, that is synthetic chemicals, for control of pests and diseases. The objective of biological farming is a part of natural farming to produce the food without the use of the toxic synthetic chemicals. Okay, we will use the beneficial insect, that is predator, parasites, beneficial fungus, beneficial bacteria for control of the pest and diseases, and also for the plant, as a plant growth promotion, we will use the beneficial organisms. That is called biological farming. Another important is biodynamic farming. Biodynamic agriculture was first born in the year 1924. This is also very important. This is also most frequently asked for example, who coined the term this biodynamic farming? Rudolf Steiner in the year 1924. What do you mean by this biodynamic? There are from two Greek words, that is bio means life, dynamos means energy. Okay, this is very important. Please note down this. Okay, organic and biodynamic farming are more or less very similar. Both are grown without the chemicals and genetically modified organisms. However, biodynamic goes one step further. Okay, it is a holistic practice where all the things are considered living interrelated system. Animal, plants, and solar system. That is use of cosmic energy of the nature is the major one in the biodynamic farming. These are all some of the principles of the biodynamic farming. They will take into account principles, that is subsistence and eco-energy, farm organism, humus, BD preparation, crop rotation, cow manure, soil, organic matter, cosmic force, that is use of cosmic energy of the nature. That is the main difference between organic and biodynamic farming is that They use the different principle to add vitality to the plant, soil, and livestock. In biodynamic agriculture, that is used specifically preparations made from the mineral herbs. That is very similar to homeopathy. And these preparations are used for enhance the compost applied to the fields, intensify the light. And the Rudolf Steiner, the founder of the biodynamic, believed that much like the moon affects the tides, it does not affect the growing phases of the planting and harvesting. In biodynamic farming, they will prepare the BD500 cow horn manure. Just I will tell this methodology how they will prepare this. It is basically a fermented cow dung. It is on the basis of the fertility and renewal degraded soil. It is buried in the soil, and the material required are cow horns and the fresh cow dung. And this is the quantity. What they will do is, first they will open the pit around 60 to 18 inch deep and covered with the soil. Only cow horns are used, not the bull horns. Okay, they collect the fresh dung and they will fill the cow horns with the cow dung, and this place in the buried in the pit turn dark into the humus. After some time, it will become the turn dark. That is, it will be humus. It will be sprayed. After that, they will apply when the div is, that is when the soil is, when div is falling, that time they will, in the evening time, they will apply this preparation, that is 25 grams of BD500 per acre in the 15 liters of the pure water. They will apply for the crop or the soil. And another important one is the biointensive agriculture. What do you mean by this biointensive agriculture? It's also a type of organic agricultural system. Here, it focuses on achieving the maximum yields from the minimum area, while increasing it will concentrate on the biodiversity and sustaining the fertility of the soil. The main goal of this method is to achieving the sustainability. Sustainability is the major objective of this biointensive agriculture. It is particularly effective for backyard gardeners, smallholder farmers in the developing countries, and it also been successfully on a small scale commercial farms. And another important concept is permaculture. And this is an important concept in the organic farming. It is also more or less similar to a type of organic agriculture. It's also called as permanent agriculture. This is very important. Who gave this term? They will ask this. Bill Mollison. Bill Mollison in the 1970s, he coined the term this permaculture. Please note down these different farming, the scientists who gave this, and what are the types, how the definitions, all those things. These are all very important for your examination. Nothing else they will ask. They will ask such type of questions for your multiple choice questions. Okay. It is a system of growing crops, plants, etc. that cause a little damage to the environment. It is a type of organic agriculture. And some of the different farming systems are diversified farming. What do you mean by diversified farming? A farming in which income from a single enterprise is less than the 50%. That is, farming plan in which no single crop contributes to 50% or more towards the total crop production and monetary income annually. That is called diversified farming. Then advantages of this diversified farming: better use of the land, labor, and capital. Business risk is reduced, regular and quicker returns, proper utilization of the byproducts. The disadvantage is marketing is insufficient unless the producers arrange for the sale of their produce, and also some of the farmers can effectively supervise only limited number of workers. Better equipping of the farm is not possible because it is not economical to have expensive equipments and machineries for each enterprise. And another one is specialized farming. What do you mean by this specialized farming? That is income from that is a farm in which income from a single enterprise is more than 50% or more. That is called as a specialized farming. Say for example, a farm in which more than 50% of the receipts from sugarcane would be classified as a sugarcane farm. Like that. Say for example, wheat, that is Punjab, UP, Haryana. The reasons for specialized for this crop: paddy, that is in West Bengal; cotton, that is Punjab, Karnataka, Maharashtra, MP, Gujarat; sugarcane, jute in West Bengal. These are all the specialized farming practices. These are an example for specialized farming. That is income from a single enterprise should be more than 50%. That is called specialized farming. And advantage of this: better use of the land, better marketing, better management, and also efficiency and skillness is increased. So the disadvantages are there is a greater risk of crop that is failure. When the crop fails means there will be certainly the yield, and also the farmer will fetch into the problem, and the fertility of the soil cannot be maintained properly. And because of the continuous growing of the same, that is single specialized probability, will deplete the nutrient and it will affect the soil fertility and also the biodiversity, and the soil organic carbon get depleted. And another important one is ranching. This is also very important. Ranching, ranch lands, popularly called as ranch lands, the lands which are exclusively meant for grazing purpose. The animals are allowed to graze in such lands, that is called as ranch lands. Ranching also, it is also popularly asked. That is, ranching means practice of grazing animals, especially sheep and goat, and it's always in the public land. That is called ranching. And this ranching is very common in Australia and Tibet. In India, ranching is not common, and it is gradually disappearing because of the increasing population pressure on the agricultural land. Another one is marginal farming. As I discussed, it is a type of subsistence farming. Okay. And another important one is response farming. What do you mean by this response farming? The concept of response farming was given by Stewart in 1988. In response farming, what they will do is the response, they'll providing the information about the supply, which derives the forecast of the seasonal rainfall from very early rain occurrence. When it will, based on the weather parameters, the farming practices should be, we have to follow the farming practice. That is called response farming. The main objective of this farming: increase the productivity of the land and reduce the risk of climate change. It's a type of farm planning practiced in considering the seasonal climate forecast. Based on the seasonal climate forecast, we can select crops. Here, the flexible where we will use the adaptation strategies and mitigation strategies for response farming to select the different crops. Okay, response farming provides the rainfall prediction based on the onset dates, and it reduces the risk, and it collaborates the extension workers. In response farming, provide detail about the behavior, pattern, and incidence of rainfall with respect to all aspects in cropping systems like crops, climate, economic, soil, fertilizer, etc. The aim of response farming is to exploit a high rainfall season potential and maximize the risk of crop failure over rainfall season using a date of onset and early season of the cumulative rainfall. Where this response farming is useful means only in arid and semi-arid climates where there is a high frequency and high variability of the rainfall has been, that is climate variability has been observed. In such places, this response farming is useful. And another important one is shifting cultivation. We'll most oftenly heard this shifting farming, the shifting cultivation. That is farming system where farmers move from one place to another place when land becomes exhausted. The shifting cultivation, it is a primitive agriculture type, and also it is most popularly called as slash and burn agriculture. Okay, in India, it is mostly practiced in northeastern states, that is Sikkim, Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland. Here, this shifting cultivation practice has been followed. That is they will call different names. That is Zoom in Assam, that is Zoom cultivation in Assam, Ponam in Kerala, and also in Podu in Andhra. These are some of the types which have been popularly called as a shifting cultivation. These are some of the characteristics of process involved in shifting cultivation. First, they will clear and grow the crops, and they will fallow and make the next move to next place. So some of the environmental ill effects of this shifting cultivation are deforestation, soil erosion, soil biodiversity loss. These will be occur when we follow this shifting cultivation. Coming to some of the other systems of farming, these are also some of the very important farming. Some of the other cooperative farming, peasant farming, state farming. Actually, these are not in your farming system, but I'm giving this additional information. Sometimes this may be asked for your examination. This is not in your the syllabus what you have given this, but it is for additional information for you people. Then what do you mean the cooperative farming? Cooperative farming, that is cooperative better farming, cooperative joint farming, cooperative tenant farming, and cooperative collective farming, peasant farming, state farming, capitalistic farming, and estate farming, collective farming, and contract farming. What do you mean by this Cooperative farming. Cooperative farming, a voluntary farm organization in which farmers and landless cultivators pool their uneconomic holding and their resources with a view to facilitate the rational use of the resources. Let's say, for example, IFCO, NDDB, these are all the examples of the cooperative farming. These are some of the features of the cooperative farming, that is, members pool their land, labor, capital, all those things. So ownership of the land continues to be with the individual members, and the members receive the remuneration according to the work done. And the advantages of this is the ownership and democratic control, and also the increased farm income, improved service, quality supplied, quality products, new products and processes, aided local leadership and development, improved farm management. And the 4 different types in this cooperative farming are cooperative better farming. What do you mean by this cooperative farming, better farming? The farmers who have small holding or limited resources join to form a society for some specific purpose. That is cooperative better farming. In cooperative joint farming, here the members form a general body which formulate the schemes and other duties of the administration. Here, pooling of the land and other possible resources. In cooperative joint farming, they will pool their resources and they will practice the farming. Another one is cooperative tenant farming. In this system, the land belongs to the society. The tenants have no right on the land, but they carry this business independently. And cooperative collective farming, the members do not have right on the land, but they cannot take the farming decision independently, but guided for the general body of the supreme. And another one is peasant farming. What do you mean by this peasant farming? Here, in this peasant farming, the individual cultivator is the owner, the manager, and the organizer of the farm. He makes the decision and plans his own farm depending upon the resources, which is generally meager in the comparison to other systems of the farming. Here, individual can take the own decision on his farm. That is called peasant farming. Another one is state farming. State farming means the name itself indicates it is managed by the governments. That is, name itself indicates it is managed by the government. Here, the operation and managed done by the government official. That is, Suratkar farm in Rajasthan, state farm in, that is in Uttar Pradesh, some of the examples of this system. But such farms are not many, but they have generally attached either some of the institute, that is small farmers corporation, like that they will. Supervision is done by the farm manager or the farm in charge. And capitalistic farming or estate farming. What do you mean by this capitalistic farming? The management of the ownership of such farms is under rich persons or capitalists. The size of such farms is sufficiently large and managed for the quite efficient. The sugar factory farms, rubber, coffee, tea plantations are the common examples of the such system. These farms are not very common in India, but USA and Australia, Canada are newly developed agriculture commercially. They are very common in such capitalistic farming. And another one is collective farming. The name collective farming implies the collective management of the land, wherein large number of families and villagers residing in the same village pool their resources, example land, labor, livestock, etc. They will pool and they will farm in a collective manner. They will practice the farming in a collective manner. That is called collective farming. This is also not prevalent in India. This is had started in Russia. This system is common in communist countries. And another important concept is that is contract farming. What do you mean by this contract farming? Nowadays, we are hearing this more of this contract farming. What do you mean by this contract farming? Here in this system, the land is taken on a long time lease base from the individual owners, and the land is remained under ownership of the individuals, but they have no role to play with the farm policy. They are paid rental value for the land. It's a good system in developed countries where holdings are large, but in India, 75% of the farmers are small and marginal. If they will lease their land, they will be forced to migrate to the cities. That is the major problem. In long term, they will become the landless also. This is the contract farming. Nowadays, it is gaining popularity in some of the states in India also. Thank you.
So thank you so much, sir. I request to all participants, if you have any query or any problem regarding to the topic, you can directly ask to the sir by raising your hand.
Any doubts? Any doubts with respect to your exams? Anything you can ask, no problem. Mostly in this the cropping system and farming system, the questions will be almost some of the definitions. They will ask the definitions. They will identify. You have to identify which type of cropping, which type of farming, who gave this, who gave that. Some such questions will be asked for your competitive exam. You have to concentrate more on such aspects in this cropping and farming system aspects. Okay, any doubts you can ask, no problem.
Students, you have any doubt? You may ask directly to sir. Everybody want your presentation.
I will share, no problem. I will give no problem. Slides I will share, no problem.
Chat box, everybody wants, please share PPT, please share PPT, but nobody wants to ask any question.
Ask questions. What are all the doubts you are having in this? Okay.
Because
all are preparing for GRF.
Yes, sir.
GRF,
Majority
SRF.
are GRF.
Okay. For your GRF exam, the what I covered, no, you have to thorough with these things. Most of the questions will be from this only. Whatever I covered in the slide, most of the questions you will get in these slides only. I have covered only examination point of view only. I have make this presentation.
Okay, if students don't have any questions, we will conclude the session, sir.
Okay.
One question is there: how do scientists find the peak nutrient requirement of crops in intercropping?
What?
See the in chat box.
How do scientists? No, it's general. Okay, say for example, we can take any two crops. Say for example, maize and green gram. The maize, what is the duration of the maize is 120 days. What is the duration of the copy is 90 days. Then how they will divide? The copy will compute the peak nutrient demand will be around 1/3 of their duration. Say for example, for any crop, say for example, in case of maize, for crop weed, the computation for the resources will be maximum at 1/3 of their duration. Say for 100 days duration crop is there, means the first 33 or 30 to 40 days is the peak for that is the computation of the growth resources will be more during that period. But in case of coffee, the duration is 90 days. Around the peak nutrient demand will be occur at 30 to 35 days. That is the peak nutrient demand that stage. And in case of maize, it will be around 50 to 55 days. The duration of the crop is more, so there will be the computation will occur at a different stage. Allelopathy, I have already explained, no? The crop should not have a allelopathic. Say for example, I will give one example, that is in some of the in agroforestry system, say for example eucalyptus system, we can't take in eucalyptus we can't take any agriculture crops, because the leaves of the eucalyptus, they will produce some of the allelochemicals, that is terpenoids, some of the secondary metabolites. These will inhibit the germination of the succeeding crop, which are sown in our intercropping system. Though we have to see first, before selection of the crops, we have to see that is complementary effect, and also some of the the allelopathic effect. We have to check which crops are fitting for the which system. Based on that, we have to select the intercrops in the cropping system. Okay, cleared?
Yes. Anybody having any questions? Okay, clear.
Just refer for cropping system, you refer the by S.C. Panda, one book is there, cropping system by S.C. Panda. You refer that book. That is very important. For cropping and farming system, you refer S.C. Panda. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Anything else? Friends, anything else need to ask regarding your examination? You can freely ask.
Try to speak up. This is very good platform for exam preparation. Okay. Gule? Nana Sahib,
Yes, sir.
please
Yes, sir.
proceed.
Uh, I am very thankful to you, sir, on behalf of Department of Agriculture Extension and Communication. It was a very informative and knowledgeable lecture from exam point of view, because you have elaborated all points, because there are many times these terms are asked in exam, in JRF, SRF, and in ARS exam also. In that you have also elaborated well types of cropping system, principles for successful intercropping, then cropping rotation, different types of the crop rotation, major cropping system in India, then evaluation of cropping system. Then you have also covered all topic regarding to the farming system, what is meant by the farming system. In that the scope, objectives, principles, and factor influencing the farming system, and different types of the farmings, like biointensive farming, biodynamic farming, different manures used in biodynamic farming, diversified farming, specialized farming, cooperative farming, peasant farming, and so many all. Finally, I would like to thankful you, sir, again, once again. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. I will share the slides to Dr. Prashant Pawar, sir. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. No
The
problem.
session is really good. We learnt more.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Prashant,
Yes, sir.
I will
Yes,
share. I will send the slide. I will share slide to you. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. It's
Okay,
great.
okay.
Pleasure.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Shall we end the meeting, sir?
We'll end now.
Yes.